It looks like it's 10:30, so we'll call this meeting to order. Holly, if you could do roll call and introduction of board members, and please remember to both introduce yourself and declare your presence.
All right. Wendy Hess.
I'm here, Wendy Hess from Woodbury County, representing communication centers.
Jason Hoffman. Bridget Edson. Mindy Benson.
Mindy Benson present with Blackhawk County Emergency Management, representing Iowa Emergency Managers.
Michelle Bischoff. Curtis Woughton.
Present, representing volunteer fire departments with Lakeford Fire.
David Ness. Daniel Schaefer. Dan Fank.
Here, Worth County Sheriff's Office, representing sheriff's offices.
Jason Schlutenhofer. Haley Nichols.
Haley Nichols present, representing the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy.
Okay. Cindy Hike.
Cindy Hike, representing Iowa Department of Public Health.
Peter Huffman.
Peter Huffman, representing the Iowa DOT.
Michael Strausser. Heath Hove.
Present, Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Patrick Updike.
Patrick Updike on the phone with Iowa Department of Corrections.
Blake DeRushi.
Present, representing Iowa Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Jessica Turba. What's that? Michelle just signed in. Okay. Okay, so I've got Michelle Bischoff.
Present.
And then, oh, go ahead. Do we have any legislative members?
Kristen Sunday from the Iowa House.
Okay. Anyone else that I missed? Do we have a?
Looks like it.
We have 10, so we don't have a quorum as of now.
Why don't you call or ask and see if any?
Oh wait, we've got
11.
Yes, we do. I forgot to mark Michelle. Okay, we have a quorum.
Great. Okay, so welcome to the November 2021 meeting of Isicsb. It's on a Monday this time to make arrangements for Veterans Day, so we'd like to thank veterans everywhere and make sure that they have a day to celebrate. I would also like to mention that when motioning, especially due to the fact that we have a lot of online attendance, please announce your name when you're making a motion or seconding a motion. That'll help Holly make sure she records that appropriately in the minutes. So can we start with a motion to approve today's agenda?
Bischoff move.
Fank will second.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Can we approve the meeting minutes from October 14th, 2021?
So moved, Rushi.
Benson second.
Suppose we should we vote on that? Yeah, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, that motion carries. Sorry for the procedural mishap on item 4. So let's move on to the Ccecd report. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I want to once again extend a big thank you
to John Benson, Blake DeRushi, John Paoli, and Allie Bright, and Homeland Security and Emergency Management for letting us host the meeting here again this month. It's a beautiful facility, very capable, and we appreciate the accommodations that have been allotted to us to use their space for the meeting. I will start off with a couple of things here. We have been working on numerous things with respect to making sure we follow up with the derecho response and the STR deployment for Clinton. I have been working with Ccecd on our reimbursements, and it looks like that project was approved. So we will be getting some level of reimbursement for that, which is good news for us. I've been working with DPS Finance and Ccecd to make sure that the money gets transferred appropriately, and then we'll hopefully have that reimbursement taken care of here within the next couple of months. As far as that deployment goes, it seems like it's still steady state in Clinton, so that's good. They are coming through what will hopefully be the final stages of their recovery, and then once that deployment is complete, the West STR will be demobbed and then looked at for some maintenance items and inspected, and then staged for deployment once again. I do want to let everybody know that the Central STR is going to be deployed for the next week or so for sure. It will be heading into northern Iowa to assist Hancock County with the project they have going on up there for the work within their center to update a few things, and will be serving a purpose to assist with paging. A couple of things also as far as some of the other our fog and EFOG and TICP with Ccecd. Got a very, very rough draft of that recently, kind of more so geared on formatting. Was able to take a look at that and give some good feedback on that to the Ccecd and their contractors to make sure that we have what we need for that. Been doing a lot of in-person training as well, and meeting with agencies on the use of Isicsb and how to use it. Had a couple of meetings with Board of Supervisors recently as well to kind of answer some questions there. It seems like interest is starting to gain within the state once again for tying into Isicsb in some way, shape, or form. And I want to let everybody know that there are staff and personnel to answer any questions that may be directed to you. We can get them those resources they need to answer any questions. We're also looking at some national meetings coming up here. I got invited to participate in an executive level meeting for SAFECOM of the National Council of Statewide Interoperability Coordinators. That'll be in Arlington, and it's scheduled to be next week. Now, assuming that trip does take place, I'll report back with anything pertinent for Iowa. Also been working quite a bit on some status board updates. We're basically on the home stretch for getting that MOA done, which is way good. And hopefully we'll get that project started with our contractor to get that package updated. Once again, the updated feature sets that will be coming for that will be a visual notification when a resource is about to expire. And also one of our additions to it will hopefully be mobile browser functionality, so it will work with a standard smartphone browser such as your Chromes or your Safaris or any of those other browsers that are built up off of that. I have several things coming up later on in the agenda that I'll report on as well, but for now, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll go ahead and conclude my report for the day and take any questions.
Great. Are there any questions for Zwick-Myers? If we have none, we'll move on to the 911 grid. DeRushi.
Thank you very much. My standing reminder that the 911 Council meets prior to this meeting. If you missed it or you're interested in any of the 911 topics, it is recorded and posted to our YouTube page, so you can review it there. A couple highlights for you. We did go over the quarterly program financials, nothing out of the ordinary. A couple other federal updates. I've presented to the 911 stakeholders the last couple of months. There has been a significant amount of next generation 911 grants being discussed within the various infrastructure packages at Congress. At one point, that figure was $15 billion. Through the various negotiations, the number currently on paper is $500 million. That's nationwide, and that is in the Build Back Better package, which has not been passed yet. To give you an idea of what that means for the state of Iowa, when that number was $15 billion, that would have meant around $300 million for Iowa. With the reduced figure, that now means around $11.8 million. Still a significant amount, just a whole lot less. So we'll keep an eye on that. If and when that were to pass, there'll be definitely some work that needs to be done on how we want to spend that money here in Iowa. A couple other updates that I want to highlight. We are close to rolling out 911 leadership training. This has been in the works for a while now and came out of our strategic plan. There's kind of a gap when it comes to 911 leadership training within the state of Iowa. There's definitely the 40-hour basic course, and as far as local 911 administrators, a lot of it is baptism by fire or whatever transition you might be able to get prior to the predecessor walking out the door. So we wanted to come up with a course that could help that transition at the local level. At the moment, we're run with the work group that's been helping us with that course this month, and then hoping to roll it out to anyone who's interested in January. So that will go over a lot of the leadership 911 centric tasks that a lot of times are just, again, handed off from person to person, and there's nothing formal in place. Another item that came from our strategic plan was a kind of a shared intranet site. Allie Bright from our office has been working to develop that. It's really a collaborative online resource where we'll put information, announcements, call counts, a lot of the efforts that the regional PSAP supervisors have developed over the years, such as job descriptions and salaries and just some of those resources that local PSAPs often want to share or find out can compile all of that data, and a lot of it can, folks can go help themselves and see what's there and post information as well. So we are rolling that out this week. If you want or need access, let us know, 911@iowa.gov. Finally, we approved one training application, $3,000 for Shelby County. They are holding the NINA Tactical Dispatcher course later this month. Jordan Sanders is the assistant EMA there. If you know him, you can get in touch with him to register or let me know, and I'll put you in touch as well. That concludes my brief, unless there's any questions.
Do we have any questions for Program Manager Dushi? Okay, with none, we have the User Group Committee report. I believe Chair Schlutenhofer is out. Schwitmeyer, do you have a report?
I can cover that in the absence of the sheriff. So the User Group Committee met last month and resumed looking at applications. There were 7 applications that were looked at, reviewed, and found to be appropriate for approval today. They are under new business, and we'll cover them more in depth there. Otherwise, that's the report from the User Group Committee.
Okay, any questions? With none, please roll right on into the Finance Committee report.
Certainly, thank you. Our monthly expenditures for October were $14,245.05. Left over in the Broadband and Appropriations Fund, we have, so far in state fiscal year 2022, we spent $49,275.93, and our remaining balance is $234,076.79. The finance team will be working with board chairs later today. We have a meeting coming up this afternoon to discuss some long-term financial aspects of the board and also the Isicsb platform as a whole. We'll hopefully have something to report out on that after the meeting today as well.
Thank you. Any questions about the finance report? Nope. Next is the Governance Committee with myself as chair. However, I was out of the office at the time. Chris, did anything happen during the Governance Committee meeting?
There was no new business to discuss, and that was about it.
Okay, and I believe Chair.
I am. Thank you, Vice Chair. The Operations Committee met, and we met jointly with Technology to discuss the encryption policy. Our formal meeting, I was out of the office and unaware. Chris, could you enlighten if there were additional meetings or Chair update?
Yeah, Michelle, I can cover that really quickly. We did go over those draft policies and standards with Technology. I'll let Patrick report on some specific discussions there, but Technology continued to roll through some of those documents.
Fantastic. And we'll work that is the topic of discussion currently, and we'll we'll keep reporting our progress through that policy on encryption.
There are no questions for the Operations Committee. We'll go on to the Outreach Committee with Zwick Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We were able to get the newsletter out again right after the board meeting last month as well. Continue to see some good outreach with that and a lot of good content each month. I would encourage anybody that would have something that they would want to have in the newsletter to let us know. I know with the various agencies that are represented within the Isicsb board that there's generally always going to be something pertinent that people may want to know about. And if you want that in the newsletter, please let us know. As a part of outreach as well, we're going to be kind of looking at what calendar year 2022 may look like for outreach and training. And we'll hopefully have something coming up here within the first or second quarter of 2022. So that's the report from the outreach.
Great. Any questions for outreach? With none, we'll move on to Chair Nichols for the Training Committee reports.
Thank you. We had a meeting scheduled on October 27th, but that was canceled due to Trooper Benda's funeral and some other scheduling conflicts. So what we've done is planned for the next meeting on November 22nd, which is also a change because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So that's a Monday. In the time between then, we'll plan to get the recorded audio for our current fly duck air ambulance landing and discuss the next project. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the Technology Committee report with Chair Updike.
Thank you. Well, first off, I attended the RPC meeting last month, and one of the highlights of that was that they went ahead, and Chris, you may want to correct me if I speak incorrectly here, but the part of the plan of the RPC 800 was to add 6 pairs in the 800 megahertz band and 5 pair, let me start over. 6 pair that could be used potentially for effective radiated power of 35 watts, and then 5 pair in the 800 megahertz region that would be designated for ERP of 2 watts. So the good thing is that if that goes forward and it gets in the plan, then going down the road, potentially those frequencies could be licensed and for use and would help fill out some of that scene of action channel plan that already exists in the 700 megahertz band. So as we monitor that situation, we'll keep everybody updated on that. The Technology Committee met on October 28th and November 2nd. Both of those meetings spent all of their time addressing those documents that were given to us by the Operations Committee. One of them is defining a compromised encryption key. I'm going through them here one by one. Over-the-air rekeying, encryption key storage location, a policy statement regarding the support of encryption on interoperability talk groups, channels, frequencies. Bear with me here. I'm going through them one by one. Chris, you might want to correct me. This one spreadsheet is somewhat a talk group, possibly a programming guide. Is that a fair assessment of that spreadsheet?
Yes, as a part of that document package, we're using this as an opportunity to potentially release a programming guide that would have updated control channel lists, site alias lists, talk group names, and other pertinent programming information. So kind of with the adoption of the encrypted talk groups, it's been discussed a few times, and I think many have agreed that this would be a good time to kind of update the whole set of stuff that would relate to programming, and over time as agencies potentially program in those talk groups, correct any other programming things that may need to be updated as well. So that is a part of it, yes.
Yeah. So the two other documents is more related to encryption and Isicsb standard 1.5.0. So we have pushed 5 of those back to operations for their review, and we're still working on a couple more. So as we move forward with those documents, we'll push them back to operations, and then they can take it from there. And Chris, I don't know if you want to add any more to that, but that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Just one thing really quick. And Patrick, I'll let you decide as the technology chair, but as a question to you, do you think it may be germane to the efforts we're trying to do here to have a follow-up meeting with representatives of operations to discuss what was done within the technology committee while Michelle was away from the office, just so that they have a full understanding of what technology looked at, reviewed, and then what was discussed and done?
Absolutely. I'm up for it. I think it would be wise.
I agree, Patrick.
So, yeah, and just because our next meeting falls on Thanksgiving, I'm trying to get one scheduled prior to that. So that might be a good time to accomplish that. And that's all I have.
Great. Are there any questions for the Technology Committee? If not, we'll go back to Chair Bischoff for the Firstnet Broadband Committee report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We will meet tomorrow, and we're meeting with Andy Sackrider, the RAN engineer for AT&T. We meet with him generally about quarterly to get an update on the system, as well as to report back any issues that have been experienced in the last quarter at a high level, network-wise, to ensure that we're holding AT&T accountable for their deliverables to the state of Iowa. Are there any questions regarding FirstNet? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to other reports, information sharing from board members. Is there any?
Couple of things, Mr. Vice Chair, if I may.
Sure, please.
This is Chris. Just want to let everybody know, keep Jason Hoffman in your thoughts and prayers. He's had a medical issue recently, been in the hospital now for several days. The prognosis overall sounds good, but it will be a fairly lengthy recovery for him. So if you have a chance to send him a message of support, I would encourage you to do that. I think he might appreciate hearing some positive words from people that work with him and know him. So keep Mr. Hoffman in your thoughts and prayers. And then also, if I may, we did go through with the FirstNet, the Response Operations Group meeting a couple of months ago. The work product document from that was socialized among key stakeholders, and we have a follow-up meeting with AT&T on that, I believe, on Wednesday. So that's what I have for you, Mr. Vice Chair, for additional information.
Great, thank you very much. I would also like to add that we had a change in our DNR representative from Ranger Strausser to, I don't have it in front of me. Okay, Ranger Strausser from Trace, that's right, Trace Kindig. So please welcome Ranger Strausser as the new representative from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Any other information sharing for board members? Okay, with none, I'd like to move on to the Isicsb System Administrator report from Connie Stuffelbeam. Connie, are you on mute? I know she's here.
I'm here. We have 26,071 radios. That's up 271 from September. Talk groups have increased by 47 to 2,582 talk groups. Push to talks that we had in October was 2,285,077, and that was slightly down by about 50,000 from what we experienced in September. So those are our numbers. Is there any questions or anything else that anybody would like to hear?
Yes, Connie, this is Chris. Would you be able to, Connie, this is Chris. Would you be able to let us know collectively if the maintenance window for 2021 is closed or near closed?
Right now, they are working on some of the counties to complete maintenance. We have, I believe, 2 Isicsb sites that have not been completed yet, and they are still on the schedule to be done this fall.
Okay,
Is there anything else? Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the Firstnet Authority and AT&T update. I believe Kevin Ida is here.
Yes, good morning. Kevin Ida here, Firstnet Authority, Senior Public Safety Advisor. Thanks for your comments earlier, and just want to make sure that you realize that our primary responsibility is for contract oversight and to continue to advocate for you, especially as we enter just a few months out our final operating condition of March 31st of 2022. With regard to our monthly update, we welcome newly appointed board members and a board chair. Our 12-member board plus the additional federal appointees are broken down as we currently have 2 from the EMS and hospital community, 3 from government, 1 representing fire service, 3 representing law enforcement, 1 from the ECC community, and 2 from tech industry. We have in our monthly update, we've got links for more information on that. Firstnet has surpassed our 2.8 million connections, establishes market leadership with law enforcement. We have a article on the impact of Firstnet on tribal communities in a post-911 world, and we'll be doing more with NTIA and tribal build-out. Our PSEC Health Strike Team explores new telehealth use cases. We're up to podcast number 60 now, discussing enablement of enhanced disaster assessments, fast recovery in Alabama, and also important to note, our board meeting will be November 17th, 11 to 1 p.m. Eastern. And at that time, we'll have our new board members in place, and it'd be a good opportunity to listen to their entry statements. So back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the Firstnet Authority? Okay, do we have an AT&T update?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We do not have any update for the new site additions after the last 3 that we updated previously before our last Isicsb meeting. But I did want to share the fixed site generator backups to make sure that enters this conversation as well in this forum. So we had 37 additional fixed site generators added within the state of Iowa last year. We had 46 added to this point this year. We have an additional 42 planned still for 2021 in the remainder of November and December. And then we have currently slated 29 planned for 2022 to be added to our primary site backups. That is all for the update.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for AT&T? Moving on, is Jim Stromberg here for the Ccecd update?
I am, thank you. The Emergency Communication Coordinator position that Jim Lundstedt held, and I am currently temporarily filling, has been officially published in the usajobs.gov website. That posting will be open from November 3rd through November 17th, 2021. CISA Emergency Communications Division has also posted a Communications Unit Specialist position open for the entire central sector. That's regions 4 through 7. And that position is open from October 25th through November 12th. The National Field Operations Guide 2.0 has been released. The PDF version is available on the CISA website by Googling CISA NIFOG, N-I-F-O-G. The eFog version available in the Apple and Android stores is pending, and the release of hard copies to the SWICs is also pending. The biannual SafeCom NICSWIC conference that was announced at last month's meeting, and it was scheduled for December 13th, has been canceled due to occupancy concerns in the conference center and COVID. There does not appear to be any plans for a virtual meeting. The next National Emergency Communications Plan webinar is titled Stay Flexible and Adaptable, Planning for Communications Continuity. That webinar is scheduled for December 9th at noon Central Time. And for more information on that, go to CISA.gov, NECP-webinars. Encryption remains an Emergency Communications Division priority. ECD, in conjunction with the National Capital Region, has recently released the National Capital Region Public Safety Land Mobile Radio Strategic Interoperability Encryption Plan. That is available on the CISA website and is available to you to use as a reference in your encryption planning. November is the Infrastructure Security Month. All month, CISA will be emphasizing the importance of the security of our nation's critical infrastructure, which includes, of course, public safety emergency communications. That will complete my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? If none, we'll move to the Standards Working Group with Swick-Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Standards met last month, and one of their primary focuses was starting to button up the work on the sub-regional talk group standards. You may recall we started that pilot project with the Greater Des Moines Metro, now just about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Those documents will be reviewed based on how the process works. Since it was a pilot, we were kind of building the plane as we were flying it. Operations has taken a peek at that as well, and it will continue working on that standard and hopefully have it pushed to governance within the next 60 to 90 days so that it can be memorialized, because I think the Greater Des Moines metro area agencies have experienced significant success in using those talk groups for a lot of interoperable situations that play out on a routine basis in Des Moines. So we will be continuing to work on that over the next couple of months.
Okay, great. Any questions for the Standards Working Group? If there are none, we'll move on to Information Sharing Framework Update with Swick-Myers.
Yes, thank you. So the Information Sharing Framework project update is, you remember Rob Dew's presentation to the board a couple of months ago. Blake DeRushi and I have been working pretty routinely on facilitating that project. We've had a meeting since to discuss possible areas of the state to have this pilot project conducted. Kind of landed on the Greater Des Moines metro area based on the types of PSAPs that are there. You've got county, you've got municipal, PD and city, you have state, and you also have university. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. We have asked the communication centers in Boone County, the Sheriff's Office to participate, along with Ames PD, ISU Public Safety, Story County, Dallas County, Westcom, Des Moines, Polk County, and Warren County to participate in this project, given the land mass covered, the change from urban to rural and how sharply that happens, types of calls, call volumes, and the equipment that they have in their centers. So far, it sounds like everybody's on board, and we will be working to try to get meetings set up so that information can be passed back and forth from those centers to Rob Dew's group so that pilot project can get going, and hopefully we can have some sort of work product from it within the next 6 to 9 months. Blake, since this is kind of a joint venture between agencies, departments, and stakeholders, is there anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I think the only thing I would add is Chris and I did try to make a pitch for other areas of the state to be involved, and were kind of told or strongly hinted at that it was we were biting off more than we could chew. So that's why the one kind of area of the state was chosen.
So with the stakeholders that have been picked, though, I think we'll have some sort of framework that'll work and be applicable to various other parts of the state. If you look at kind of the collective effort there, we have interfaces between some counties that are rural, that do border the metro area. And For example, the interface between Boone and Dallas would certainly be appropriate to compare rural center to rural center to some extent as well. So that project is going, and I will report back in December if we've made any headway on information gathering in the initial work product. So that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions about the information sharing framework? With none, we'll move past old business as there is no old business on the agenda. On to new business. We have some new Isix users up for approval. Chair Schlutenhofer is out, so I believe that information about those applications can be covered by Swick Myers.
Thank you. Certainly. So the user group committee met last month and looked over 4 applications. Department of Veterans Affairs, Central Iowa Healthcare Center. That's in Des Moines. They're signing up for level 2 access for some talk groups to cover the emergency functions that they support within that center. The Federal Department of Homeland Security, their investigative unit is signing up for level 2 access as well. The Iowa Association of Electrical Cooperatives is signing up for level 2 access. Scott County Emergency Communications Center is signing up for level 2. The Southwest Iowa REC, Rural Electrical Cooperative, is signing up for level 2 access as well. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, their law enforcement arm, is signing up for level 1 for interop access. And Warren County Sheriff's Office is updating its application to include more agencies, talk groups, and things of the sort. They're continuing to be level 4, but they're adding radios, talk groups, and agencies as well. So as a non-voting member of the board, Mr. Vice Chair, I can't make a motion to approve these, but you could certainly open it up to the floor for that.
First, I'd like to ask if there's any reason why we should need a roll call vote on these collectively, if there's any conflict of interest or anything. But barring that, please, I'd like to open it up for a motion to vote on all 7 of these approvals.
Vote in a motion.
Make motion.
Who was that? Sorry.
First, paper signed in late.
Oh, Wotan? Yep.
Yeah, Wotan motioned.
Schaefer will second.
Okay. And with that, all approved, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And now moving on to a comment about the FCC proposed updates to the 4.9 gigahertz frequency range.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is Chris. So if you think back, I think last year around this time, actually, the FCC posted a rule change to 4.9 gig that would have taken that spectrum that was initially allocated to public safety and repurposed it, repackaged it, and changed a lot of the fundamental rules behind it. We did submit comments on that were opposed to that change. And then over time, as administrations changed and they got more feedback, that rule had a stay put on it, and then eventually it was completely rescinded. Since that time, though, within the Federal Register over the last couple of weeks, a request for comments was put out to, again, look at rule changes for 4.9 gig. Now, 4.9 gig is not necessarily something that's hugely prominent in Iowa, but we do have approximately 55 active licenses that use 4.9 gigahertz. 4.9 is primarily used as a point-to-point data connection. So think if you've got a local LMR site or a paging system, you may be using 4.9 for that site to talk back to whatever home base and servers it may have to communicate with. So with those 55 licenses and with proposed rule changes to 4.9, it will be something that does have an interest to Iowa stakeholders, so we want to make sure that their views and feedback is heard, especially at the federal level. Now with this, there probably will be some changes to 4.9 gig that come regardless of what our comments are, but I think it's important for us to at least have our feedback out in an open public forum. Unlike last time, though, we are able to potentially file joint comments with another state or states, plural. I got a notice from an APCO representative from Region 20, which is a frequency planning area out east, and there may be a possibility for us to sign on as joint filers on this type of comment and we have the opportunity to file jointly with the Regional Planning Committee 20, which covers the Maryland, D.C. area out east. A couple of agencies within the state of Maryland, District of Columbia, Pennsylvania, State Police, Indiana, and possibly also South Dakota. So today I'm wanted to bring this to the board to see if it was okay with you for me to continue on with this work, to get these comments filed and to get our perspectives put into to them as well. So I guess what I'm looking for here today, Mr. Vice Chair, is some sort of blessing saying go ahead and continue with this work, or either something that says, well, maybe best to just back out of it and let some other states handle it. So that's what I would like to find out today, if the board is generally supportive of that work continuing.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think it's first and foremost very important to keep up to date with that kind of thing. So having that kind of knowledge is certainly critical to operations moving forward. From my standpoint, from the DOT's perspective, yes, I agree. I think we should let it be known that we have concerns, and we don't want this kind of thing happening without our voice being heard about it. But as mentioned, I would like to hear from some other board members about that.
Just a question. You mentioned a number of other state entities. Is that a fairly collaborative effort, or is one taking the lead? Are you taking the lead? Who's taking the lead on that?
Fortunately, another state is taking the lead on that. It is Charlie Bryson from Maryland that is doing that. He's been in the process of drafting comments, and he will be sending them out for overall review relatively soon. So it is a collective effort. One thing, too, where I do want to say with 4.9 that I forgot to mention before also, if I may, right now most of the Isicsb network uses Ccecd for its long-range microwave backhaul connections. It may be in our interest long-term to also start looking at 4.9, especially if Ccecd gets congested or is unusable in some areas. So this may be a spectrum that we would want to look at potentially using as backhaul connections between sites or dispatch centers over time.
Somewhat just talking out loud, do we want to, as a board, see those comments before they get filed? I don't know about necessarily approving them, or have, like, if the group goes a different direction that you're not comfortable with, that's when you bring it back to us. I wonder if the board needs, I don't know about final blessing, but knowing how the FCC works and from the 911 perspective, it would be nice to have a little bit of a heads up on what those final comments end up being.
For sure. I think that information will have to be disseminated to the board, and I think, if nothing else, Chair Ness will have to see it and likely at least have his level of approval before we post anything that is a formal statement from the Isicsb board. Do we have any other board members who'd like to chime in?
Wooten's in agreement with what you guys have already said.
Thank you.
Chris, this is Patrick. I wonder if it's of any benefit to maybe give a little bit more detail as to what they're proposing to do with this 4.9 gigahertz that you're working to oppose, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily opposition, I don't think, because we haven't seen an official rule come out yet. They're soliciting feedback, but really there's a couple of things they could do with it. Number one, they could redo what they tried to do last year, which I don't see that as being overly likely. What may happen is that spectrum could be repurposed as opposed to being used for something like point-to-point data connections, potentially wide area broadcast. If you think about what may come from LTE, there's certainly potential to use that area of spectrum for wide area broadcast. I believe that there's some spectrum right now that is in a similar frequency range that is in use for wide area LTE connections. I believe we've got a couple of band 66 sites which are near that spectrum out by the Iowa City area. So that's one avenue for that, where that spectrum could be entirely repurposed for that, or it could be a combination. Say a sliver of it is kept for point-to-point connections, and some of it is used for that wide area type of broadcast. Those are the three scenarios I see as being the most likely, and in speaking with some of the other states, that's kind of what they see as being likely as well. So I know that's not necessarily a direct answer on what they're trying to do, but it is our best understanding of the current situation at the time. Within the questions, they do ask an open-ended type of question where they say, how would you feel about this being used for wide area LTE? Or how would you feel about this being reserved for point-to-point? Or how would you how would you feel about this spectrum being reserved for something else? So I really do think that they're looking for feedback on this. I think that there is a general direction that they're trending towards, but that's the best I can do for you at this point with what may or may not be in that rule long-term, Patrick.
Yeah, what about unlicensed operations in that range?
Well, that's just it. One of the hallmarks of 4.9 was that, in theory, if you had to stand up a short-term microwave connection, you could use 4.9 up to, I think, 12 months without having to notify the FCC or get any sort of licensing. I don't know what those rules would look like going forward. You know, you heard me mention before that we have 55 active licenses for that spectrum in Iowa currently, but I don't think there's a way to really quantify or qualify how many unlicensed connections we may have at this point. So a change in this rule will have some effect on Iowa stakeholders regardless, but it's difficult to say exactly who and when it would affect them, depending on are they licensed or are they using it as a temporary connection. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think that was really kind of the important part of this is if they're opening up that part of the spectrum to unlicensed operations, that's wouldn't you feel that would have probably the most impact?
Certainly, and right now it is open for unlicensed operations, but it's temporary. You're kind of hitting on a point too, where they just did open up 6 gigahertz for unlicensed operation with things like Wi-Fi routers. So if you think about those types of point-to-point connections that are out there right now, and 6 gigahertz, which is a different spectrum, you know, that may be more open to interference long term because of that non-licensed operation with low power devices, especially in an urban or suburban setting where you do have a higher amount of those Wi-Fi routers being out there operating in 6 gig. So it could open up a scenario like that if 4.9 does go for unlicensed use. It's just hard to say at this point where that line in the sand for that rule may be drawn.
Yeah, and it probably seems like I'm just pushing back on you, but really what it is I'm telling you that, yeah, we should probably continue to look into this. How's that?
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your input. Are there anybody else want to put in some input on that proposed update and the investigation into it? With none, I think it's fair to say that you have support in moving forward on continuing that and drafting some information about what you would like to do in terms of a public statement or signing off on a public statement made by other states.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And of course, when there's something ready for dissemination, I'll send it amongst the board members and we can kind of work it that way. And I'll also make sure that legal counsel in the state is okay with the content of those proposed comments as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let's move on to public comment. Is there any comment from the public today? Okay, then with none, I would like to thank the board members, I would like to thank the public, and I would like to thank Representative Sunday from calling in today. We appreciate your participation very much. Motion to approve, please. Motion to adjourn, please.
That moves.
All right, and we'll just thank you very much, and we will adjourn.